like a lot of, didn't I ask you to clean the kitchen?
Right.
Like, I thought I asked you. And he's like, yeah, you asked me to. I remember it. I didn't get it done.
Right.
Over 60 years, that's a lot.
Yeah, that'll drive anyone fucking nuts.
Yeah. I mean, they were together for a while and it was going great, and then things just happened early on that just breed resentment. And then the next thing you know, one guy in Long Island hits the other guy with an axe.
Jesus.
Kills himself. And, oh, no. Where am I? Little Jimmy's left alone.
It's good to solve these issues in two different houses sometimes.
Right.
It's the long way to swing an axe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We got Mike Rowe coming in.
Yeah.
We could take another break here. He's going to be in promoting Somebody's Gotta Do It. Season 2 premieres Thursday at 9 on CNN. So you got any plugs there, Jimmy?
No, just Rochester coming up April 30th through May 2nd. And the Borgata July 10 and 11, and then Andiamo Celebrity Theater September 26th. I had a bunch of stuff going on sale too, like Minnesota and a few other places that I'll announce when they come out. I just don't remember the dates.
Good to know you killed it in Denver. They came out for Jimmy.
Awesome.
Nice.
I can't believe how good it was.
Really?
It was all 4 shows on the weekends were oversold, and I think I was like 14 people shy on Thursday of a sellout. So it was like
beautiful.
I can't believe it. I was stunned.
And is that club as good as
amazing?
Why? What makes that one amazing?
Low ceilings, good crowds.
Do you like low ceilings when you perform?
Oh, everyone does.
Why?
Because it's a fucking reverberation of laughter. It's a small box. That's why the Comedy Cellar is so good when you're killing. Unlike last night where I was not. But when you're killing in these rooms, I think Nick DiPaolo talks about Acme in Minneapolis, which I've never done, but I think that's one of the things. Every time a comedian raves about a room, you're never going to hear a guy going, oh, the ceilings are high. It's always low ceilings. There's an intimacy there, and it's just an energy that comes off the ceilings and hits the walls and comes back. It's indescribable when it's working in a room like that.
I never knew that before.
Yeah.
What else makes it a good club? The chicken wings?
I didn't eat there, but I'm sure the food is okay. But I think the fact that people have been going there for a long time, seeing good shows, that's how they get, they still get David Tell in there. It's not that big a room. I mean, it's like a 300-seat room.
It's pretty big.
It is, but
it's nice size.
There's a lot of guys that, like Chris D'Elia's doing it this week, and I think most of his shows are pre-sold, or half of them are pre-sold already. And instead of doing a theater or a bigger club, you go in and do that one just because it's so good.
Right.
So good.
Very cool. Go to JimNorton.com for all the dates. E-Rock's got the she enticed me my entire life clip, right? This was another... Oh, it's self-explanatory. No?
It was a 911 call, yeah.
Yeah, most people have heard this, but it's worth playing again right now.
This is pretty well hot.
How can I help you?
I shot my wife in the stomach with 38.
Is she still there?
Yeah, she's laying on the floor.
Why did you do this?
She enticed me, and she would ridicule me throughout my lifetime. I'll see if she's alive.
Sir?
She's alive.
And now, Opie and Jim are back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jimmy just, whatever. I don't know what I can say.
I'll just say that I just showed a picture of something I did recently, which I can't tweet about yet because these people are a little protective about their plot lines and stuff. It was very small,
right,
but it was still kind of fun to do it.
But what they did to you there is amazing. I can't wait for people to see that picture.
Yeah, I can't either.
I got Mike Rowe coming into the studio. Good old Mike Rowe.
Oh, my God.
We don't owe you any alcohol or anything, do we? No apologies needed. We're good, right?
It's a matter of coffee.
You just need coffee and that's it. I already talked to Mike for like 15 minutes now, so
and it was good.
We probably should save that for the air.
It was good, man. I mean, honestly, I can't recall a better conversation.
There were laughs.
Oh my God.
There was intrigue.
It was that high pitched laughter too that sometimes happens that we don't like to admit.
No,
it just gets away from us.
I continue to be a huge fan of Mike Rowe. Huge, even though I know you.
That's nice of you to say. Thanks.
I remember the days of the walkover.
Yes.
You would walk from one show to the other. Now look at you on CNN.
And I remember thinking after the first time that happened that these guys are either completely making it up as they go, or they're in on some sort of joke, or I'm looking around for the camera, fairly certain that my friends have orchestrated this really elaborate punk. Because why am I in the middle of 6th Avenue,
right,
in the middle of an interview?
We absolutely made up the show as we went.
Yeah,
for years.
Yeah,
it was crazy, but it worked.
It is, but look, you know your viewers probably better than your bosses do, and maybe anybody else. And I mean, viewers are different from show to show, but you know they can all smell a rat.
Right.
They all know when they're hearing something that was focus grouped, or tested, or researched. You know, they know the difference between a promo and a story and a reminiscence.
I said earlier, it was just that me and Ant just did not talk when we were not on the air. So, but I guess it worked to our favor in a weird way because it was way more natural.
Well, you know, the word everybody uses, and it's probably overused at this point, but it's authenticity, right? Mm-hmm. Like to be authentic today, if you really and truly are, you can probably do just about anything you want, but you're not necessarily going to be liked, and you're not necessarily going to be correct about things. You know, it's like I just read, you know, Jon Stewart for like 10 years now is every single year rated as more trusted than every major news anchor. Mm-hmm. And it's not because he's more accurate, and it's not because he's less biased, certainly. It's because his viewers really, truly don't believe that he's selling them a line of goods.
Right.
He's authentically him.
Right.
You know, Simon Cowell, same thing, right? He was a prick. Everybody hated him. But we loved him because he told the truth.
Yes, I loved hating him. Yeah. It was fun to hate him.
Yeah.
I loved Piers Morgan because of that.
Sure.
He's grown on me a lot, Piers Morgan.
Piers?
He really has grown on me. I like him a lot now. I didn't like him for a long time, and then we interviewed him, and I'm like, I really like him.
I kind of like that he gets under people's skin, though.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
Yeah. No, he truly doesn't.
And he gets right in there and he battles with the haters, and he just fucking gets his hands dirty, man.
You know, the strange thing about Pierce, I did a show a couple of times, and
we can't talk about Pierce. He's on your network.
I think he was at one point.
Are you allowed? No, I know. Are you allowed to talk about him, though?
I don't know, but I mean, why not? I'm trying to be authentic and whatnot.
I'm kidding.
No, I mean, you're in a small studio, and you're having a very robust conversation, and there are 5 or 6 people in the studio all operating something, and you're right in the middle of it, and it's time to go to a break, you know, so we go to the break, and when we come back, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then for 3.5 minutes, silence.
Yes, they just sit there.
Just silence. I mean, and
you witnessed this?
I participated in it.
Oh, funny.
I mean, I was like, so Pierce, you know, and he's kind of held up his hand. He wasn't being rude. He was very focused though on something. And, you know, he had a phone in one hand and he had a computer thing in the other. And he's basically trying to stay ahead of the show a little bit. But there's a very specific kind of silence that happens when you're in a studio like this, and all of a sudden it gets quiet.
Right.
It's hyper quiet. And it's a little spooky.
It's uncomfortable, right?
It's weird, man.
You feel like something's wrong, or somebody's screwed up, or like, oh, this is not a good. Sometimes guys just don't want to talk to you off air because they don't want you to say something interesting that should be on air.
Yeah.
Once in a while, you get a great thing, and it's like there's no way to recapture it. And it's like, fuck, why didn't we just talk about this on the air? Because that's
Yeah,
I didn't even want to have that conversation outside the studio, but I haven't seen you in a while, and I consider you a friend.
but I've already forgotten what it was. So if you want to do it again,
no, it was all nonsense. I mean, you're at CNN, you're doing well,
right?
But I think you said something like it's a little frustrating because you're competing with the world and world news.
Well, right. Like for the last 15 years, everybody says, how's the show doing? And you immediately have a conversation about your date and time, right? So, you know, we're on Thursdays, so we're competing with friends. So that's tough.
Yeah.
We're on Sundays, so you got the NFL. That's a pain in the ass. On CNN, if you're a lighthearted show, you're not competing with anything. You're competing with everything.
Right.
You're literally competing with ISIS and missing planes and Ebola. Mm-hmm. You're competing with Cuba getting its freedom. You're competing with the stock market that went up, or maybe it went down.
Right.
You're competing with an election, or a crooked politician, or a controversial Supreme Court appointment, and it never stops.
How many times have they pushed your show to the side because they had to like do the breaking news on the plane crash or the ISIS story? Or
I don't have the data, and I'm probably not authorized to really hit you with this kind of statistical truth. But I will tell you, according to my own my own computations, we have set a world record in the history of preemptions in the first season of an original series, which, as you know, is a big deal, a ton of promotion, everything else. 40%.
40% cancellation?
40%,
whatever.
40% of the new episodes coincided on a Wednesday night with the end of the world or some version of it.
I remember a couple times tuning in, and you're not there because they love plane crashes. I'm like, give Mike Rowe his hour, then you could go back to the flight simulator.
Exactly. Why not? We could bring up a plane crash, watch a train wreck, and then go back to the plane crash.
But see, here's the trick. I mean, honestly, and again, I'm way beyond my pay grade here. But if you've got a big brain and you're looking at programming issues, right, and if you're a 24-hour news network, you take the long view and you say, 90% of the year, we're spending time not really covering breaking news, but analyzing a thing that everybody's already familiar with.
Right.
And into that space, we have the freedom to do all sorts of things. Now, 10% of the time, roughly, the news is breaking, and that's when we must be there.
Right.
But 90% of the time, surely there's room for a lighthearted show. And I still believe there is, and I think everybody else does too. You just don't know when that 90% of the time is.
Right.
And honestly, in the last 6 months, it hasn't been 90.
But then that extends your season, doesn't it, though, a little bit? Like, they're going to show the episodes, didn't they?
Eventually, everybody will see everything.
Yeah.
But it just messes with that world, that kind of programming, that metric. I don't understand how it works, but it's I get letters every day from people who tape my show and tune in, and there's some bad news to report. It's like, oh crap, again.
And your fans are hardcore,
Oh, my
man.
God.
They love you.
Oh my God.
They're really into Mike Rowe.
It's very flattering, and
and it's got to be nerve-wracking because you're wondering, well, maybe they're going to, second guess having some lighthearted programming. I think it was a smart move actually to bring you on and Anthony Bourdain and stuff like that, just to mix it up.
yeah, and it's definitely working. It's just tricky because, again, fundamentally, it's lighthearted versus the news of the day. And that just means it's really, I don't want to come crashing in to the middle of coverage of the Boston bombing or a missing plane, because the people who are watching the network right then, they want the news.
But a lot of it is they just go and say the same thing over and over.
Can't speak to that, Opie. No idea what you're talking about.
Okay, you can stay out of this, but I'm an observer here. And it's just like, all right, I get the story, the news cycle, and there's nothing new right now, but they'll keep spinning it and spinning it and spinning it. They obviously know what they're doing because they know how to keep the viewers going. But I'm sitting there going, put Mike Rowe's fucking show on.
Well, there's a fine line, and I don't know. I guess you're crossing in relative terms. But did you see Saturday Night Live this week?
You asked me outside. No.
Oh my God,
I missed it.
No.
Nobody saw it?
They made fun of the whole CNN plane crash thing?
No, it wasn't that. In fact, to me, it wasn't just it all took place at CNN, but it was really a commentary on the drilling down into the minutia of a thing, right? And it's just hysterical. But it basically starts with a conversation about, the cockpit door and the lock on it.
Right.
And to discuss the cockpit door on the lot, they've gone to animation. And the animation looks like it was cobbled together by a small, disturbed child, with Photoshop, version 1.
Yeah.
And it's funny. All right, but they're talking very seriously about what a doorknob is and how it turns, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's some coverage brought to life with puppets, and I mean, and world figures are now portrayed as puppets, and analysts are brought in to, look at the puppet behavior. And I'm telling you, it's when satire's good, it's the stuff that keeps you sane.
Absolutely. I'm gonna have to check it out after the show today. We have it on our screen, but
There you go.
Is it worth playing real fast? Nah. No. Okay.
I mean, it's very funny, but I think between the three of us,
We can handle this.
I think we can even be more amusing.
Yeah. There it is. All right. Now I'm distracted by that, Sam.
Yeah.
So I asked you this outside the studio too. That's your real parents in the promos.
Oh yeah,
Because sometimes you don't know if they cast he's knocking on his parents' doors and stuff and trying to promote his show. And
yeah. The shtick is this season. The show did well, but by and large, nobody knows him on CNN. So I'm spreading the word. So I go back, just walking down the street, talking to people. And then a series of vignettes unfold in my parents' home that really weren't scripted either. These are actual conversations that have happened over the years between, my mom and dad and I.
Right.
The invitation to move home. You see, because they put the show on Wednesday night. I'm not there. All right, I've been preempted. They're pretty sure I've been fired. Mom wants me to know the bedroom is just the way I left it, and my dad wants me to know I got to pull my own weight in the backyard. It's not going to cut itself, and and it's all this stuff actually happens. So CNN was very, very cool. They were like, look, just go and shoot your life with your real parents. And we shot for about 5 or 6 hours, and I just talked to them yesterday, and they said, we have more great footage than we know what to do with, which is a nice way of saying, if your show were half as good as these freaking promos, we would all be.
Right. We wouldn't have to worry about the promos.
So far, they fired you and hired them.
Exactly.
I mean, you've been in the same business as us, sort of, over the years. Mm-hmm. Now, your parents, were they always supportive? Did they talk about how you have to get something to fall back on, and they just thought maybe this was a little hobby you had, and eventually you will be home doing a real job, living in their house?
Yeah.
How did all that go?
I think they were scared. I mean, they had 3 sons. I was the oldest, and they both taught public school. And my brothers and I are all different from one another radically, you know. And so I think from their perspective, they probably looked at their spawn and just was like, good God, please, something, how's this going to work? Because we all went in totally different directions.
Right.
So, the honest answer is they were very, very encouraging. They said, look, we don't care what you attempt, but don't half-ass it.
Right.
And so I got started in high school. I wanted to be a carpenter, but had no skills. And
that's somewhere along the way, did you decide maybe I need skills and not to just want to do this?
I had a lot of pressure. My grandfather, who lived next door to us, built the house I was born in without a blueprint.
Wow.
8th grade education, master carpenter, plumber, steam fitter, pipe fitter, electrician, welder, and mechanic.
Wow.
You know this guy. I mean, everybody has somebody in their family who just got the chip.
Right.
What's that?
He's just born knowing. And I was so impressed by it and so convinced that was the thing to do. And he was very supportive, and my folks were supportive. And even as I failed out of wood shop, metal shop, even as I failed out of carpentry, I mean, everything. It was just a disaster. And the old man finally one day said, look, I get it. You want to be a tradesman, but you don't need to be a classically trained construction guy to wear that title. Just get a different toolbox.
Right.
And so I went to a community college and started studying voice.
Nice.
And I was in plays after that, and that opened the whole crazy world. And so, yeah, my folks, they saw me wandering in the desert for a while.
Right.
But I remember my father heard me on the radio one day. It was years ago, right when Domino's was starting. And one of my first voiceover commercials was for Domino's Pizza. And you'll love this story. The short version was, I was working in a jingle house. The client said, hey, here's $200. We need a scratch track. We're not sure the client's going to like it. And he gave me the copy, and it was, when it's got to be deep and it's got to be thick. It's got to be Domino's, right? Right. It was their deep dish pizza.
Right.
And he said, just say it like it's kind of dirty, and make it sexy, even though it's pizza. So I said, when it's got to be deep and it's got to be thick, it's got to be Domino's. And they're like, oh, look, good for you. So they gave me $200. I went to Australia as planned, came back 2 weeks later, and had like $28,000 in residual checks in my mailbox. The spot aired, and they used me. And so that's a long way of saying my dad heard me talk about Domino's Pizza, said, how's it going?
Right.
I gave him the paychecks. He said, the boy's going to be okay.
Wow. Yeah, you do have the gift, the voice.
And of course, deep dish pizza is something I now enjoy every day.
Yeah, good. My dad was fully supportive. My dream was to be on the radio from a very young age. And my mom, not so much, always like, well, you should always have something to fall back on. I don't really believe in that, though. I think if you have something to fall back on, you don't really give it your all. And if you do end up failing and you don't get to the place you want to be, there's always other shit you can do, was always my thought. But to actually focus on something to fall back on, as I'm trying to completely focus on doing radio, I didn't really understand that. I know she was looking out for me, but
no safety net. I agree.
Right?
No safety net.
Well, you want the there's a physicist who talked about that, Heisenberg, right? The uncertainty principle.
Yeah.
The act of seeing a thing changes the thing.
Right.
Right. It's a observational impact. So a safety net is a great example if you can see it. So how do you behave on the high wire when you know there's a safety net?
Right.
How do you behave when you know there's not? And how do you behave when you think there's not, but there actually is?
Wow.
Moreover, how does that inform the audience's experience? If I know there's a safety net, but you don't. I watch the experience totally differently. If I do know there's a safety net and you do as well, then that's one step away from boredom, actually.
When I go to the circus, I completely agree with you. As soon as I see there's a safety net, I'm bored out of my mind. I'm like, who gives a fuck?
Right.
But if I was up there, I'd want a safety net, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take that chance.
Well, why do you think Deadliest Catch is still on? I mean, season 11.
No safety net.
You can't script the Bering Sea.
Right. That is probably the craziest show as far as reality shows go. That is nuts what they go through.
There's a huge pressure right now in my industry, in the nonfiction industry, to and there always has been, to eliminate and mitigate risk. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a huge pressure in the country to do the same thing. We've made everything that we do as safe as it can possibly be. And of course, that's nice. We all want to come home and survive the day, but there are unintended consequences to everything.
Sure.
And when you take the danger out of a job, once upon a time, like 100 years ago, danger was one of the things you got paid to assume. It's the reason you could get rich doing a thing. And so much of that's been removed. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's happened. And so I believe that's why so many shows that put you in those worlds where you don't see the safety net.
Right.
That's why people watch.
Of course. As far as somebody's got to do it, have they ever told you you can't do a certain thing?
Yeah, actually.
You got a story?
Yeah, well, I mean, the stories are boring because it's just now we're in a world of compliance. You know? And of course, the irony is just because you're in compliance doesn't mean you're out of danger. 10 years ago in the Atchafalaya swamp, I could have grabbed the alligator farmer who happened to have a helicopter, and we could have jumped in the helicopter, which we did, and fly 30 feet over the swamp with harpoons that had radio trackers on them, identify the alligator nests, and then go back in an airboat, find the nests based off the EPIRB reading, and then hike out through the marsh, dodge the alligators, and get the eggs. This is a very exciting bit of television and a pretty good story. That story doesn't happen today. No way, no how.
Right.
Can't do it.
Why? Because of the animals or because of the danger to you?
Both, but mostly both those things can be handled. What can't be handled is the compliance on the helicopter. Can't handle it.
Really?
Nobody's going to take a chance from an insurance standpoint until or unless everybody signs everything.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you can't do it quickly or spontaneously.
Right.
And that's the first thing I said when I sat down today. The viewer can smell a rat. So the trick is to try and do a show that can be as honest as you can be and just deal with the stakes that you're given.
Right.
Like this Thursday is a good example. I go to Chicago and go to the PBR. Now, once upon a time, I might have gotten on the bull and hung on and see what I could have done. No way. I'm 53. It's not going to happen. But I did agree to bullfight with the guys who, run in and let the bull chase them after the guy falls.
The clowns.
Off. Yeah, except they're not clowns anymore. At the rodeo, they're clowns. In the PBR, these guys are...
Oh, you're right. I went to the PBR in Madison Square Garden. I forgot they don't use clowns. You're right.
No, and these...
Why don't they?
I don't know. That's a very good question because the rodeos certainly do.
Because the rodeo's more
Maybe they want
spectacle.
Yeah, they want this to be more like the professional. And
that's it. It's professional bull riding. Yeah. We do one thing, we ride bulls. And, guys die and the stakes are high and it's a big deal. So I was blown away that they would let me. I was surprised that production could handle it. I was happy the network was cool with it, but I'm basically going to go fight bulls. And I do. And I live, and it's fine. I very nearly got a horn up my ass. It didn't happen, and I'm grateful for it. The footage is fun. But the point of the story is, or at least maybe the irony of it is, we spend the morning letting bulls chase us, and it's amazing. And then afterwards, I walk backstage, and I meet a cowboy. And they're bringing in about 65 big bulls, and they all have to go into individual pens because when the event starts, each cowboy is matched up with a specific bull. And if you get the wrong bull, the whole thing is no good because the bulls are rated, the cowboys are rated, the whole thing's an algorithm. Right? It's very, very specific and serious. So you got to get the right bull into the right cage. Problem is, all these cages are interconnected with heavy iron spring-loaded gates. So there's a latch. You pull the latch back, you push the gate forward, you change the dimension of the cage, thereby allowing a bull of various sizes to come in. So imagine lots of cowboys pushing lots of gates simultaneously with these big iron latches coming back and slamming shut. There's only one rule. Don't put your hand where the iron latch lands.
Of course, yeah.
I break the rule immediately. The iron latch flies into my little finger and breaks the end of it. I just now finally have my fingernail back. Smashed it into a pulp, like exploded, right? And suddenly, I just can't tell you how often this has happened. You survive the big thing. I jumped out of a plane 15 years ago. No problem. Pulled my own chute. Fell down the steps in the parking garage. This is the same thing. Okay.
That's humiliating.
This is the same damn thing.
Let us laugh at that, please.
I survived the bull.
Right.
And then my finger smashed by a stupid gate. And the cowboy who lets the latch go looks at me and says, "Oh, yeah, that'll smart." And I'm like, smart. I got blood all over my shirt.
Yeah.
And I turn to Frank, who was the guy I was fighting the bulls with, and I hold up my hand just to show him. And he looks at it, absolutely no expression. And he kind of makes a little pouty face, and he holds up his hand. Same hand. No little finger.
Whoa.
And he says, "Yeah, I'll give you a call when this grows back."
Wow.
Point being, A, it's the little stuff that always creams you, and B, you can't complain to a cowboy.
Right.
Yeah.
We went through the same shit with radio. I mean, most of the stuff that we're known for, we cannot do anymore.
Yeah.
They will not allow it.
It's true. Management put us in a cage. They tied our balls. And they watched us just jump around like assholes.
Well, let me ask you something. How do your listeners take it? Because I know it's got to chap your ass, but do they understand, and are they still with you?
It's for the most part, they've changed with us, I guess. Others, maybe that was the thing they really wanted to hear from the radio show, so they've moved on. But our hands were tied. We're just tied. We just cannot do it. So it's frustrating too, because it's the same shit. The lawyers. I mean, we can bore you to death with our lawyer stories where they sat us down, and instead of trying to figure out how we could possibly do some of these things, right?
Yeah.
They give us all the reasons why we can't do these things. Right. And that was always the struggle. I'm like, come on, there's got to be a way we could still do this particular bit. I don't have one in mind at the moment, but it wasn't anything outrageous. Like, we can't even really have naked women in here anymore. Not that we need to have naked women anymore. Right. Because now you got the internet. There was a time you heard a naked girl on the radio. It was like, I don't know why. It just would blow your mind. Like, holy fuck, she's actually naked on the radio right now, you know? And now, obviously, people are like, who gives a fuck? I could see that on my phone.
I don't know, man. I think there's something still.
Well, we enjoy the hell out of it when it does happen.
Yeah, but as a listener. Right? I mean, think about the way, none of us were born, but imagine, it's the 30s and the 40s and the families gathered around the radio. Right. And they're listening to the story hour. And now, we listen to that today and it sounds so dated and it sounds so ridiculous, but I got news for you, man. It's still for sale. Right. And the idea of a naked girl in your studio for a guy who's driving down the Van Wyck is probably more interesting. Titillating. Mm-hmm. Because it's what you call your theater of the mind. Right. He can see her the way he wants to see her. Right. You hop online and do whatever it is you want to do. Guess what? Check your imagination at the door. There's no need for it.
We were very good at leaving out a lot of details when the girls were kind of, let's just say, piggy. Because of what you just said. Everyone has that. We would sometimes not even mention what color hair they had because we knew that, everyone has their different types. So you might want to, to think she's a brunette with big boobs or whatever. Yeah. But we had some disasters and then listeners would go, where are the pictures? Because then the internet did hit. So now it was like, I imagined this thing and now I get to go to the internet to see what it actually was. And we would hold back the pictures like, we're having a problem with the server or whatever. We've lost that card from the camera. Yeah. We were taking care of them.
Yeah, you don't want to see it.
We didn't want to, fuck up their fantasy and what they thought in their minds.
I don't know. I think there's something to that touches every aspect of TV and radio and broadcast today. Right now, I think it's all suffering because we've got a stranglehold on it, and we're
Right.
trying to control it so much
Right.
that people are just turned. Somebody's going to come along, some technology is going to come along, and it's going to eat our lunch.
Right. I used to love reality shows. I can't stand them now because they're all assisted reality.
Sure.
Ozzy fucked that up for everyone. I really believe that too, by the way.
Then they set the bar too high.
Yeah, because Ozzy finally went away and his family, and they're like, well, we got to find the next Ozzy family, and they just couldn't do it. I forgot who they tried over the years. And then they go, well, if we have this family that's almost good, we could actually give them the storylines and work off that. And so half the stuff you see is not even real, that it was written ahead of time.
Yeah.
And
Gene Simmons did well, I think, but that was
did pretty good.
reality. Family Jewels was good.
Yeah.
There was a few of them that did well, but there was nothing as organic as the. You know, you need a successful family, a husband and a wife that both do things, kids that both do things, just so the cameras have something to shoot.
Right. See, there's a bargain that you make in the unscripted world, and it starts with your willingness to define the word unscripted to mean without a script.
Right.
Right. And if you're willing to do that, then you will get stuff like Ozzy, but you'll also get stuff that'll put a glass eye to sleep. Right. And you just have to be willing to cut your losses, you know, because let's face it, most of reality is kind of banal.
Yeah.
But what's happened instead isn't just the search for that which is, you know, that good versus the rest. It's Hollywood does what it does, which is let's take a thing and make it something else. Mm-hmm. And we'll still call it unscripted. We'll still call it reality or nonfiction even.
Right.
And that's what I think ultimately, well, that happened in my world. And I think it's still happening to a lot of people. And viewers, you know, they're confused.
Well, do you get pressure to, you know, produce these shows quicker? Because that's why reality shows work. They would sit in the real world house for a really long time until they finally got stuff happening. And then for some reason they lost their patience. Like, no, we could film the same show in 4 weeks. We'll just give them alcohol, and then they'll start fooling around.
Well, truthfully, I mean, without sounding like too much of a sycophant, that's why I'm on CNN now. I couldn't do this show right now at any of the usual places. Because, like Dirty Jobs, I can't tell CNN how each episode is going to end. I can't tell them how the segment is going to end. I can't tell the viewer how it's going to end.
Right.
We're still very much banking on the idea that there's some uncertainty in this trip. And so, look, maybe it's an A+, probably not. You know, it might be a C+, B-. I don't know. The world is what it is. And, you know, I wanted a place where people, you know, would say, okay, we're not scared of that.
Right.
That's the positive side of what we were joking about before. You know, CNN, you know, Fox, big news organizations, they're used to not knowing what the hell's going to happen next. They're used to it. The other guys, no. They want to control it. They want to test it. They want to focus group it. They want to have something to sell beforehand.
How many times have you heard, but how does it end?
Oh my God.
But how does it end? It's like, do you understand what I'm doing here? Don't worry about how does it end.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm diving in a pool of poo or whatever.
Yeah. I tell you how it ends, with a freaking shower.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a conversation, I swear, a few months ago with a unscripted executive at a major place. And during that conversation, the following terms were used: narrative, arc, character development, single-minded proposition driving the act breaks forward. I mean, I could go on and on and on, and all of that stuff is the nomenclature of scripted comedy,
right?
You know, and it. The writers went on strike a decade or so ago. Reality TV was born. Mm-hmm. The writers came back. Everything kind of was different, but at the same time, there's this huge pressure now to bring those elements of control that made original reality and unscripted so much fun.
Amazing.
It's to bring them all back under control.
Oh,
and it's.
I guess it's
not
working
good.
though, because they continue to allow it. You know, people are still watching these shows. The Kardashians is amazing to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is complete nonsense. Why are people watching this?
Like you said, it's so cheaper too. So you get a bit of a script and you shoot something in 3 weeks or a month, and that's so much cheaper and so much easier to edit than 9 months of just dreck.
A lot of direct.
Oh my God, people doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know who Banksy is?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I know him.
All right. Do you really?
No.
He owes me money. There's a
Don't.
There's a guy I hung out with in L.A. last week who's often mentioned in the same breath. He goes by Plastic Jesus, right? And he's a street artist, and he goes out, and he's best known right now for a turn of phrase that you'll love: stop making stupid people famous. He's basically stenciled it all over town,
right?
And it's caught on to the point that now famous people are buying this shirt and wearing it. You know? But it was
funny.
But it was inspired by the ladies you just mentioned, and I'm only bringing it up because I think it's getting very meta, you know, and people have become aware that something fundamentally false has happened, and so whether it's irony or social observation or whatever. Yeah, that's exactly it. He let me paint a few of those as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, we went out in the middle of the night, and he showed me how he does it and why he does it and what he does. He had to wear a mask because, you know, technically he's breaking the law. Breaking the law. But yeah, he's a guy who's got to do it, and it's just an interesting world.
Do people know what he looks like? Like, for the most part, no one knows what Banksy looks like. Some people have an idea, but...
Same deal.
Same deal.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what about the new season? Somebody's got to do it. What are we doing this year?
It's back. It's Thursday. We no longer on Wednesdays. Ask my mom and dad. They're completely up to speed. Wish they were here. Thursdays at 9. I think this week I do the bullfighting thing, and then there's a fun random moment in Iowa where I see a guy walking down the street dressed like Abraham Lincoln, and he's completely assumed Lincoln's identity. So he's either crazy or interesting, and either way, he's good for our show. So we go on a spontaneous romp, and that's good fun. And then I went up in Humboldt County, where I spent a couple of days. Humboldt County is north of San Francisco. It's best known for weed. There's so much weed in Humboldt County. I mean, they grow it, and it's, by all accounts, better than average.
Yeah.
But it's also a really interesting community sort of set aside that has figured out a way to make made in the USA back. Everything up there seems to be manufactured locally, and everybody buys from everybody locally. So there's a weird kind of communal element to the place, but it's also very, very, very capitalistic and entrepreneurial. And so it's just a strange mix of, you know, bud in the air. Everybody's on an entrepreneurial trip, and everybody's friend. So
like a commune almost.
There's an element of it, really, except that there's way too much capitalism to even use that word.
Right.
But it's everybody just, you know, I'll buy your stuff, you buy my stuff, and it'll work. And it does. And stuff's weirdly expensive up there too. But I think there's enough weed throwing dough in the economy; it doesn't matter.
Sure. I like this weed being legalized.
Yeah, it's a kick.
It's a kick.
You smell it in weird. When I was in Colorado, it's legal, and you smell it in weird places. Like you're not expecting to smell pot in a public place. And you're, oh yeah, it's allowed here.
I love the smell of it. I was just smelling it on the subway the other day. I was on the one train, and the guy he was standing way too fucking close to me. It was a packed subway, but I didn't mind because he obviously just had a few hits before he jumped on, and there was something very nice about that, comforting.
You think he was going to work or coming home from work?
He didn't look like he was going to work, no. I don't know where he was going, but he certainly didn't look like he was either going or coming from work. What else from the show? We got to pump this up. We got to get people watching.
All right.
In between the live coverage of plane crashes and Ebola and ISIS.
All right. No, there have been lots of great ones. Let's see. The week after that, I met a guy named, and this is how the show works. It's mostly Facebook suggestions.
So that's true?
Oh, yeah. I still get all the ideas from,
very cool.
As many as I can from viewers.
Right.
But a guy who hasn't been in a supermarket or purchased food in about 10 years, named Hank Shaw. He was a former political writer. In fact, he was on the bus with Bush Gore and just had enough, And so he became a professional full-time forager, mostly just to win a bet. He wanted to see if he could live for a couple of months just off the fat of the land. So, he was in New Jersey at the time, hunting and gathering. Now he's out here, and he's taken it to this whole new level. So he takes me to, I say out here, I'm in New York, sorry. I'm used to being out there. We go up to like Point Reyes in Northern California, and we just, I mean, on the one hand, it looks like a couple of guys walking through fields picking flowers. And then the next thing you know, there's a dead boar, and we're eating like kings, and the sun's going down over Mount Tam, and it's all very crazy.
How did he come across the dead boar? Did he kill it himself?
He killed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You sure he's not just one of those OCD guys that won't spend money?
I asked him that, and I also said a really stupid thing too. I'm like, so what happens when you go out for the day? Because we spent the whole morning fishing for crab and just regular fishing, and we didn't catch anything. And he's like, what do you mean? What happens? I mean, like you must be really hungry. Yeah. And he's like, asshole, I open my pantry and I eat some food, that I gathered over the years.
Right.
I'm not doing it day to day.
Right.
I do it every day.
But what's in his pantry?
Oh my, it's packed.
With what kind of stuff that he's collected?
So, I mean, everything from jams and jellies to cured meats.
Right.
He's got 100 different plants and veg. I rolled my eyes to.
Sounds awful.
All I can tell you is he made me a meal that was pretty good.
It was good.
And so if you're Hank Shaw, you're a guy who's got to do it.
Does he ever dumpster dive?
Never.
He's never gotten desperate.
Oh, he's not that type of forage. All right.
No, but in this part of the country, they have a thing called an honor box out on these farms, which I knew about but had forgotten about.
It's a prostitute you mail a check to.
That's a dishonor box. No, you take some eggs and you leave a couple of bucks.
Oh, okay.
They got those farms all over the place out on Long Island.
Do they?
Yeah.
Do people actually leave money, or they just?
I've never seen money, Mike. They'll leave like their little strawberries out or whatever, in the fall, and it's like kind of an honor box. They just have a price, and there's no one around. So I'm assuming they just, unless they come by and just empty the box, all the time. I never really saw money in that.
No, I'm not saying it's a business so much. It's not
lazy.
a going concern. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you sit there and sell your own goods? You're not that busy on the farm.
Maybe you're multitasking. Maybe you've got other stuff to do.
Right.
Maybe you should have a kid and sit out there by the lemonade stand and collect money for the eggs.
Have the kid sit out there and collect the money from the strawberries.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to make some calls. I'm going to look into the honor box thing for you.
But you wonder, they make the money they're supposed to make with the honor box?
What's the question?
They make the money they're supposed to make with it?
Oh, man, I don't. Again, look, see, this is what happens. I come here, I bring something up. I don't have all the information, so I'm making a mental note now. I'm going to look in. The IRS has probably audited honor boxes and the whole thing. So, Jamie, I'm going to get the answers for you.
Well, it's either the nicest thing I've heard or the dumbest. Like I don't know what it is because I've seen those honor system things like once in a while in a hotel.
Yeah,
like the little bitty bar you leave the money. Like this is in the lobby, and I always pay it.
Right.
But I just some people say when they let you buy a DVD off or the comedians sell their specials online or musicians, they say you pay what you want to pay, and it's an honor thing. And people a lot of times will overpay because they don't want to be taking advantage of somebody's generosity.
Right.
That's a good point.
One other thing I definitely want to mention. You were brave with the Ferguson and Eric Gardner protests.
Yeah.
You were brave. Not a lot of people in the mainstream media taking your stance.
Well, call him as I see him.
I got the exact quote. Do you mind if I read it?
What'd I say?
I support peaceful protests. Is this going to bother you that I'm reading this? Okay, good. I'm all for rooting out bad cops, but let's not stop there. If we're serious about saving lives and eliminating the confrontations that lead to the demise of Garner and Brown, let's also condemn the stupidity that leads so many Americans to resist arrest. I don't care if you're white, black, red, periwinkle, burnt umber, and chartreuse. Sorry. Okay. Resisting arrest is not a right. It's a crime, and it's never a good idea.
Yeah, I said that.
That's pretty brave, though. A lot of guys not taking that stance.
So in Ferguson with a blowhorn. Bullhorn. Oh, shut up, Jim. A blowhorn.
We've had a long morning.
Honor box.
We had to deal with some stuff today, so we had a long morning.
Blowhorn. There's no way to fix that on the fly.
But I obviously I'm not black or whatever, but I don't understand the whole resisting arrest thing. Every time like a cop is wanting me to do something, I've always just been scared enough to go, okay, sir, okay.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot deeper than that, and now I'm sure people are going to be calling all pissed off.
No,
but
people are going to be pissed.
I don't understand how they live their lives, obviously, but I know in my dumb, stupid life, I'm a pussy when it comes to a cop saying anything to me. I'm like, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I don't want to be. Sometimes you don't want to be. You want to, you want to act out.
I was just thinking when I was a kid, I had a mini bike, and I was about 15 or so, and I I was riding it not far from my house, and there was a shortcut home that would save me about 3 miles, but it required me to hop on the open road for about 300 yards.
Okay.
Okay. And so I'm in the woods. There's the road, the other side of the woods. So I just do a quick dog leg and hop over. And as soon as I get on the road, I go by and a cop passes me in the other direction. And I look over my shoulder and he lights it up and does a U-turn. And I do something so completely and totally out of character. I mean, look, I was an Eagle Scout, for crying out loud.
Right.
I don't, I was a good boy. I floored it. I accelerated. I went over the embankment. I went down, and I just took off. And I was going across. It was Gardens of Faith Cemetery, and I'm riding right along the edge of the stream. And I rode about 300 yards, and I look back, and the cop has stopped by the guardrail, and another cop has stopped with him, and they both have their lights on, and they're both running down the hill with their hands on their guns toward me. I'm thinking, what the hell? Well, this can't be happening. Why are they? Now, there's still about 150 yards. I can't hear them because of the sound of my mini bike, but I can see they're telling me to stop. I can't stop. There's just now I'm making insane decisions on top of bad decisions. But I turn around and I floor it and I leave. I go through the bamboo, across the creek, up the trail, and I go home. Now, the story ends like this. I store the bike back in the shed where I always kept it. I went in. Mom, Dad said, how'd it go? I said, everything's fine. Nothing to report. And I just kind of chalk it up to this weird out-of-character thing I did. Later that night, during the 11 o'clock news, we're sitting around, and there's a report of a gas station that was robbed earlier that afternoon about 2 miles from our house. It was an armed robbery. And it was one of 3 gas stations, turns out, that had been robbed by a guy on a motorcycle. So I'm sitting there watching this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, those cops weren't chasing me because they saw a kid on a mini bike on the shoulder of the road. They're chasing me because it's entirely possible I'm the doer.
Right.
They think they're chasing a crook with a gun. Right. I'm a 15-year-old kid on a mini bike, but they don't know, and I don't know. And it just got me thinking, what happens if I, maybe my bike stalls and they keep running, and maybe I start it again and it stalls, and maybe now I'm completely out of my stupid mind in a total panic, and the cops are maybe 30 feet from me, and I reach for my satchel to show them, I have a wallet and I'm just a kid, but I got a helmet on too, and they're not sure of that, and they're chasing a guy they think is armed, and the whole thing's just a misunderstanding.
Sure.
And suddenly, blammo, I don't deserve to be shot, but the cop has no idea what he's dealing with, and this giant crazy misunderstanding happens, And the reason I wrote what I did back then, there was on my Facebook page, there was a whole conversation about it, and I was just thinking about that time, and the moral of the story for me was, you do not resist arrest. You don't do it, because you don't know what those cops might know about something.
Right.
You just don't know.
Right. You could have very easily been the bank robber that day.
Easily. To them.
Right.
And so I just felt like, this is about living to tell the tale. It's about living to fight another day. So in the interest of that, I said, look, let's just take a breath. And
how bad were the replies on your Facebook?
It was some were pretty bad, but I don't do that stuff completely half-cocked. I actually thought about it, and I have a partner that I work closely with, and I said, look, I don't want to weigh in on this. I'm not really a gadfly, and I don't, I'm not looking for trouble, but on my Facebook page, there are 2.5 million people, and they ask me very direct questions, and part of the fun of engaging with them is you can't bullshit them. I mean, I've said before, look, I can't touch this right now. I'm not smart enough, like the business in Indiana. Look, I don't understand the law yet, and I'm not going to go there yet. But every now and then a thing comes along. Yesterday, something interesting happened. You see the movie Going Clear?
No.
About Scientology. I didn't see that.
Oh, I still haven't seen it. No, everyone's saying you got.
Documentary,
Everyone's saying you got to see this
documentary or movie?
It's a documentary, and one of the people featured in it is a woman who worked for me for a few years.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, very brave. Very. I mean, first of all, it's an amazing movie. I watched it, and I wrote what amounted to a movie review. You know, I said some things because I have some strong feelings about this in general, but I was fairly circumspect. I woke up this morning, 5.3 million people have seen the post, and thousands are having this big conversation about it. To me, that's very cool. I mean, I'm not trying to start a fight, but
What was your take, quickly?
my take on the movie is that it's excellent. My take on tax-exempt status for any organization that essentially sells enlightenment for money is tricky.
Right.
And I think that, a lot of worthwhile churches and organizations are enjoying the same kind of status as a lot of others that might not be as worthwhile. It's not for me to say which is which, but
You're making me feel bad.
it's a good movie.
Because when we were growing up, we were at church for a while to get through some bad times. My dad figured it out.
You were at church?
Yes.
What church?
I don't know. He figured out the church thing with the tax exempts.
Oh, you were at church. You found a church.
Our family was technically a church.
Sure.
We did nothing with it, but my dad talking with his pals, they discovered this loophole. My dad went with it for a while.
Yeah.
We were officially a church that did nothing about it. And then we didn't have to pay our taxes for a little while. But it got us through some tough times.
Look, if you find a way to legally beat the system, I'm not the killjoy who's going to go, don't do that.
I think it was legal. My dad swore by it. We had to walk around with the tax exempt, certificates, so we didn't pay taxes on anything. That was embarrassing. I would always hide in my back pocket and then tell him, "Yeah, I didn't pay taxes on my sneakers," because I was mortified that he really thought, as young teenagers, that we were going to go shopping with our pals and actually hand over the tax exempt to tell them that we're a church and we don't pay taxes.
On what basis were you at church?
I don't know. I was
this?
too young. I gotta ask my brothers to get more details on this. We were mortified.
Were you selling anything?
No, I don't think so. Unless my dad was going off and selling things at little local fairs or something.
Were you collecting donations?
I don't think so.
Well, that's the difference. If you're
I really don't think so.
if you're tax exempt and people are giving you money and you're selling them things,
Right,
and you're prospering as a result of it, then I have some questions. If you're, on the other hand, tax exempt and functioning as a charity and doing good and obvious work that stands up to whatever level of scrutiny we can apply to it, then great.
Well, meaning a lot of the money is actually going towards some really nice things.
Yeah.
Not some of these preachers where they got their own private jets and
Look, I think I can't.
20 cars and houses all over the place. And
it's part of the reason it's so hard to raise money for good causes is because so many people now rightfully have seen just how much avarice and nonsense and dishonesty goes into all of it.
when you go into, I was just down in Philly, a Wawa, and they have the change thing, and there's some cause there. I don't put the change in anymore. I'm like, what are the possibilities that bucket of change is actually going to anything?
I mean, I don't know. All I know is in
Maybe
the
I
middle
should-
of the night in a Wawa, the guy in charge of it is making about $9 an hour
Right.
and probably not feeling super great about his role in life. And here's a plastic cube with $180 in it.
Right.
I don't know.
I would assume, who wouldn't take a taste is my point. Who wouldn't? There's not a man or woman alive that isn't taking a little taste if they're not making a lot of money.
Which brings us back to the honor box, Jimmy.
Yes.
right.
A box of honor.
So you have a problem with Scientology or just the documentary in general? Or?
It was a great documentary, and I wrote a post. Part of what it dealt with was people who have left the church, and it told their stories. And the story of my friend who left is particularly gut churning. And she got out, and she's now come forward, which is a very brave thing to do. So I basically just wrote a post to say, look, thanks for speaking out. You know, I think there's anytime somebody does something that takes guts, I think, we live in a day and time where somebody ought to shine a light on it.
Right.
And she did a good thing. But But no, I don't begrudge Scientology's right to exist. Okay. I don't begrudge anybody the right to separate a fool from their money in a legal way. That's, part of being free is being stupid.
Well, Mike Rowe, you're refreshing because a lot of people that are as famous as you, they play it very fucking safe.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Ferguson would certainly brave. It sounds like this latest one is pretty brave as well. Most celebrities just shut down.
It's nice of you to say. I don't know if brave or not.
No, we have a lot of guys in here, and you ask them simple questions, and then you could see them in their mind, like, well, who's this going to piss off if I answer this properly? And they go through that whole exercise, and a lot of times you don't get anything out of them.
See, I think, I mean, again, thanks, but how many guys who really come in here, A, are expecting a serious conversation, and B, have really put some thought into, forget what's right or wrong, but put thought into how they actually feel about a thing. That, to me, is what's missing in general in conversation. It's so easy to have an opinion, and now, thanks to these frickin' phones and everything else, everybody's broadcasting. Mm-hmm. It's not just you guys sitting here with microphones. It's, you hold up the thing, you take the video, you hit click, and now there you are.
Right.
You're a network.
Right.
So everybody's got an opinion, but I'm just not sure how many people actually have a clue.
It's usually positive stuff they weigh in with, though. I mean, that's what I notice. Yeah, I get a lot of the positive feedback. Good job, Jim.
Great line, by the way, in a movie called Whiplash. Have you seen Whiplash?
I have not.
You just said it. J.K. Simon says, in the history of the English language, the two words to do the most damage are good job.
Bravo. And with that, Mike, second season, somebody's got to do it. I'll be watching. I love the show.
Good job.
love what you do. My sister-in-law, I think, wants to have sex with you. What else can I say about you?
No, that's probably as good a place to end it as any.
And you already autographed stuff for her and made it a little sexy. So she's out of her mind about that.
What's her name?
Mary.
She wants you to shove deep dish pizza in her pan.
Is she listening now?
Possibly, sure.
Mary, when it's got to be deep and it's got to be thick, it's got to be Domino's.
Nice.
All right,
Mike. Thursday at 9 on CNN is the season 2 premiere of Somebody's Got to Do It.
Thanks.
And you come back soon, right?
I'll come back whenever you invite me.
Well, how about tomorrow?
I'll see you then.
Okay.
I'll bring bagels.
Jimmy?
I'm good, man. Just, I guess the primary one would be April 30th through May 2nd is my Rochester shows, and my special is the 24th. It airs on Epic, so I'm hoping people watch it.
Oh, he's got a problem like you do. You know how they're preempting your show?
Yeah.
He's got to deal with the Bruce Jenner interview.
I got to compete with that, and who's going to watch me when we're all jerking off watching that?
Like that.
My eyes.
Believe me, that's what I'll be saying at the end of it. See, I have good aim.
It's gonna be a great special on Epics, but
Diane's got to be deep.
Right. But Diane Sawyer is interviewing Bruce Jenner the same night. We feel for our little Jimmy.
Damn,
that's a tough one to compete against. No,
it's rough. Yeah,
it's gonna get a lot of eyes.
Yeah, it is.
Do you understand that transgendering thing? As an older gentleman,
I understand the process
and the attraction to it.
But
am I just speaking for me? Sorry, just chimed into it. I thought we had a bond.
It just blows my mind because we're around the same age. Bruce Jenner to us was like
Wheaties, man. On the Wheaties box, remember?
And then you fast forward, he's a 65-year-old guy that needs to be a woman. I'm trying to understand. I really am, but it blows my mind.
Yeah, you know what, though? I'd be careful with one thing. Why is it that everything that happens needs to be understood?
True.
I mean, honestly, sometimes we all get the same 24 hours in the day, and really how much time do you want to spend? It's a good question, and maybe over a couple of beers without so many freaking microphones around, I would exhibit some of the courage you referenced earlier. But honestly, I don't know. I mean,
it's got to be a tortured existence to believe or actually be the wrong gender. I mean, it's just got to. I can't comprehend thinking that. I mean, my body's not great, but I know I'm in the right gender.
Right.
That's got to be just a fucking awful way to live.
I believe it's a real thing, absolutely, but I just can't imagine it. Can't imagine.